Hey everyone, very quickly before we get into the video, the YouTube channel recently reached 10,000 subscribers, and to celebrate that, I'm going to be doing a Q&A next week. Now, in order to gather all of the questions, I set up a channel in my Discord channel specifically for this. If you've ever wanted to ask me a question, can be about anything, then head over to the link in the description towards my Discord channel, and then you can go and ask your question there. Now, back to the video. Hey everyone, this is Mike. Today I'm going to be talking about toxicity and giving advice, and why those two topics can often intertwine with each other. Now, if you end up liking this type of content, make sure to give the video a like. It really helps me out, and it also allows me to gauge really easily what type of content you guys like. And of course, if you're new around here, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Now, when it comes down to me personally, whenever I get good at the game, I acquire a new skill set, I learn something new, can be in a hobby, can be on a work environment as well, I often like to share my knowledge with other people, because that is something that gives me a lot of satisfaction. If, for example, I make a guide on Alexander Savage, or like Alexander Ultimate, I made a guide on Dancer, and then some guy a few months after that comes sliding into my DMs and he's like, hey, I saw your video on Dancer, I learned how to play Dancer from that, use your Alexander Ultimate guide, and now yesterday I finally got my Alexander Ultimate clear, first Ultimate that I've cleared. Then that is something that gives me a lot of personal satisfaction, and that is one of the reasons why I like doing this YouTube thing. A lot of my content is aimed towards newer players, to give them the information to get better at the game. But now I also understand that a lot of people don't care about being good at playing video games. They just want to play the game their way, which technically is not a bad thing. They can just enjoy themselves the way they want them to. But of course, we also have the fact that this is a multiplayer game and you're playing with other people as well. So you kind of need to take into consideration that you shouldn't be griefing those other players. Whenever I go into a dungeon and, for example, there is a healer, this is a pretty easy example, that just goes in and the first thing they say is, I am here to heal, I am not here to deal damage, then I personally consider that to be toxic. And of course, those are not elitist players. Toxic casuals are definitely a thing that exists in this game and in many other games as well. Toxicity is not something that is only for the elite players, like a lot of people kind of tend to view it as. Like, if you're an elite player, you are a toxic individual because you want everybody else to play amazing as well. Now, technically, I am supposed to be a hardcore elite player because I've cleared all of the ultimate content. I can play at the best of my ability, get those 99 parses if I really wanted to try for it. But I always try to just help out other people as well to get better at the game. And often, back in the past, when I would see people play the game wrong, so to speak, like for example a black mage not using their fire spells, only using ice magic, or for example a tank not using their cooldowns, I would just go out of my way to say, hey look, you should use your defensive cooldowns as a tank. It would really make the healer job a whole lot easier, especially if I'm the healer, then I'll definitely be pointing that out even to this day. And when it comes down to those other people, like for example, if they're not doing AoE damage on AoE mob packs, that was my Gmail, don't worry about that. But then I would be like, okay, can you like try to do some AoE damage, because like our tank is tanking 10 different mobs, that's gonna do a whole lot more damage than your single target rotation. But whenever I would make comments like that, or where I would try to give advice, like for example to a black mage, try using fire spells because that does a lot more damage, go into ice to get mana back. Even if it's something very simple like that, it would often be met with very negative comments. Something like, you don't pay my sub, you don't get to tell me how to play my game, go back to playing World of Warcraft, you toxic elitist piece of garbage. Like, of course, those aren't very fun things to read, and it is pretty much all from the best intention that I am trying to like help these players out to get better at the game. And of course, as I said, I get it that not everybody wants to improve in playing games, which I don't technically get myself, because why else would you play a game if it is not to get better at it? But I can understand that some people just simply don't care about it and just want to play the game the way that they want to play it, or the way that they think is the best way to play it. But yeah, it's really unfortunate that you're often met with very negative comments when you're trying to give advice, which is where this toxicity kind of comes into play, because a lot of people view others that are very good at the game and that are trying to give their knowledge to others as very toxic, because they're like, well, they're trying to teach me, no, they're trying to tell me how I should be playing the game. They don't care if I get better, they just care if their dungeon run doesn't take 20 minutes but only takes 15 minutes or something like that. And that is definitely not always the case. There are a lot of people that I play with that over the course of the years have always tried to give like advice to people that they meet, in whether it be Party Finder, whether it be in Duty Finder, like just going through a dungeon, to try and help people out to get a little bit better at the game, or to try and understand the job that they are playing a little bit better as well. But over the years, I've always found that more often than not it will be met with very negative comments. And because of that, lately I just don't really try anymore. Like for example, a few days ago when I made that video about Final Fantasy is too easy, in that dungeon run our Black Mage did not know how to do the AoE rotation for Black Mage, and the Red Mage just didn't even use AoE at all when it came down to the AoE mob packs. Now of course I didn't say anything about it. The Black Mage I wouldn't really care about too much because at least he was trying to do AoE damage. The Red Mage, that would be something in the past that I would definitely have spoken up about and be like, okay guy, can you like try to use some AoE damage so that the mobs will die a lot quicker, because single targeting isn't really the play here. But nowadays I just don't really put effort into that anymore because I've just been met with negative comments way too much. If people really want to learn, then they'll slide into my Discord, ask questions there, or like for example send me a DM with like, can you help me out, can you help me how to improve, and then I will very gladly help those people out, because that is something that gives me a lot of satisfaction. If I'm able to help someone at the end of the day, whether it be through a YouTube video that I made, whether it be through something that I responded on stream, whether it be something that I was helping them out with over on Discord, it is something that gives me a good feeling at the end of the day. And that is pretty much all that I really care about, and I know that those people are really people that want to try to improve, and that do not see my advice as me being a toxic player that just wants to go through the dungeon quicker and doesn't care about that individual, but rather only cares about myself. So toxicity, it is something that you can both find in, of course, the elitist players. More often than not it comes from elitist players, but I've also noticed over the last few months that casual players definitely can be very toxic as well and want to force the way that they like to play the game on other people too. So it definitely is coming from both ways, and it's not saying like if you're an elitist player you're toxic, if you're casual you're not. I'm also not saying the other way around, like if you're elitist you're not toxic, if you're casual you are. There will always be people that are toxic and that aren't. Doesn't matter if you're a casual player or an elitist, like high-end raider, whatever you want to call it. It's in both worlds, and it is something that I don't necessarily like to see. Of course it's very annoying when I go into a dungeon and there is one guy screaming at the other one saying like, oh, you should be doing this or you should be doing that because you're playing the game wrong and you're bad. Of course, very toxic behavior. But on the other hand, if you're having someone that is like, oh no, I want to play White Mage, I'm just going to go and sleep all of the mobs, even though that doesn't really work at endgame at the moment. Like that's just how I want to play the game. Like that I consider to be toxic behavior as well, because they're not helping out the team at all. And when it comes down to playing Final Fantasy XIV, it is a team game, so you should be trying to do things that help the team out, and those GCDs that they spend on trying to sleep the monsters would be much better spent on using a holy to do some more damage to all of the things. But that is of course just my opinion. I kind of wanted to get this off my chest because it's something that is very near and dear to my heart. As I said, I really like helping people out, and more often than not my good intentions are met with very negative comments, which is of course not so very nice to see. So what do you guys think about it? Whenever you see somebody playing bad or playing something the wrong way, do you go out of your way to give them some advice, or are you met with a lot of negative comments as well when you do decide to go out of your way to try and help some of your fellow Final Fantasy players? Let me know in the comments down below what you think about it. But that's gonna be it for me. I want to thank you for watching. I want to thank my patrons for supporting me, and I'll see you in the next one.